For many years, Edd China was known as the calm, collected genius behind the workbench on wheeler dealers. He was the man who could take the most complex automotive problems and solve them with an effortless grace that inspired millions. His co-host handled the buying and selling. Edd was the one who brought the cars back to life. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, Edd disappeared. Fans were left stunned when he announced, "I'm afraid it's true, and I'm really sorry. After 13 years of making wheeler dealers, I'm now going to be leaving the show." And just like that, the face of car restoration television vanished from their screens. But what really happened after Edd walked away? Why did he disappear into the shadows of his workshop? And what was he secretly building all along? When Edd China's garage finally reopened, what people found inside was jaw-dropping, far stranger than anyone had imagined. The moment Edd China announced his exit in March 2017, it sent shockwaves through the automotive world. After being an essential part of wheeler dealers for over a decade, his decision left fans heartbroken and confused. Edd had been more than just a co-host. He was the soul of the show. Known for his calm demeanor, methodical approach, and deeply informative mechanical segments. He stood out as a rare kind of television personality, one who educated as much as he entertained. Over 13 seasons, Edd helped transform countless cars and taught viewers the intricate beauty of automotive repair. So, why leave now? As it turned out, Edd didn't fall out of love with cars. The reasons behind his departure were deeper and more complex. Creative differences had begun to form behind the scenes, especially with the show's new direction. When wheeler dealers transitioned from a modest UK-based production into a US-centered global franchise. Changes came quickly and not all of them were welcomed. Discovery channels. Decision to shift production to the US also came with a new production company and a different philosophy. The show's format was to be streamlined, fewer workshop scenes, faster edits, and a tighter runtime. But for Edd, those very workshop scenes were the heart and soul of the series. In a calm but firm video message, Edd explained his choice. He believed that cutting back on the repair footage would compromise the show's educational value. Viewers weren't shown the details, the problem-solving, the creative workarounds. The hands-on repairs, the show would lose its authenticity. For Edd, it wasn't just about being on camera. It was about integrity. He wasn't willing to compromise what he believed in, so he made the difficult decision to walk away. Reports later revealed that tensions had been brewing for a while, with Edd feeling increasingly misaligned with the show's new priorities. As the production moved toward polished entertainment for a global audience, Edd, whose identity was built on transparency and genuine craftsmanship, felt out of place. His exit caused an outpouring of emotion from fans around the world. Social media lit up with a mix of anger, sadness, and overwhelming support. For many, Edd had been a trusted figure, a teacher and guide who made complicated repairs understandable and accessible. Mike Brewer, Edd's longtime co-host, publicly acknowledged the departure, expressing regret while also reaffirming his own plans to continue the show alongside a new co-host. Ant Anstead, a skilled mechanic in his own right. But even as the show moved on, fans knew it wouldn't be the same. The unique chemistry between Mike and Edd had taken years to build. It was authentic, and that authenticity couldn't simply be replaced. To Edd's credit, he left gracefully. He didn't engage in public drama or throw anyone under the bus. He simply explained his position and quietly stepped away. But there were personal costs, according to media reports, including stories from The Sun and Metro. Both Edd and Mike faced backlash from some fans, some of it harsh and much of it misdirected. Edd later admitted that while he stood by his decision, the emotional toll wasn't easy. In interviews, he described the exit as sad but necessary. For someone who valued precision, transparency, and educational value, there was no going back once those lines were crossed. Then, Edd disappeared. After stepping away from television, he went completely off the radar for nearly a year. There were no new projects, no TV appearances, and no announcements. Fans began to wonder, had he given up on television for good? Had he burned out? Or was he secretly working on something new? Something bigger? The silence was deafening. But Edd wasn't idle. It simply retreated to his workshop, away from the noise of cameras and deadlines. For the first time in years, he had the space and freedom to focus on what he truly loved: building. This period of absence was highly unusual for someone as visible as Edd. For years, he had been a regular presence at car shows, engineering events, and in interviews. So when the updates stopped coming, speculation took over. According to limited insider accounts and later interviews, Edd had returned to his roots, his private workshop. This was the same place where he had once created his quirky inventions like the motorized office chair and street-legal sofa. But now, there were no film crews, no episode schedules, just tools, ideas, and unlimited time. Those who knew Edd during this phase described him as recharging. After years of working under intense TV production schedules, he was finally moving. At his own pace, his focus wasn't on producing content for a show. Instead, he was creating purely for the joy of creating. He was sketching, prototyping, and revisiting old projects' ideas he had shelved because they didn't fit neatly into a television format. Some even hinted that he was working on electric vehicle conversions, possibly developing a way to retrofit classic cars with eco-friendly drivetrains while preserving their original charm. But these were just rumors. No concrete details emerged during that time. What did emerge was a growing sense of mystery. Fans flooded online forums with questions. Old wheeler dealers' clips on YouTube were filled with comments, wondering where Edd had gone and whether he would return. Some believed he had left the industry for good. Others held out hope that something exciting was in the works. Most simply wanted to know he was okay. After all, walking away from a long-running show, especially one that helped define your career, is not easy. Edd later acknowledged that the transition had been emotionally challenging. He had let go of a global platform, a steady income, a creative outlet that had been part of his life for over a decade. It wasn't just emotional fatigue. Some industry insiders suggested that Edd had been quietly frustrated in the months before his departure. He still had the creative spark, but the environment no longer nurtured it. The garage became his refuge space where he could work on his own terms again. During this time, Edd also stepped away from social media. His Twitter account went silent, and his YouTube channel lay dormant. For someone so deeply connected to DIY culture and transparency, the silence felt eerie. Occasionally, fans would report spotting him at local engineering expos or classic car meets, fueling more speculation. Was he testing new inventions? Recruiting partners for a new project? No one really knew. Still, as the silence stretched on, so did the intrigue. Had Edd simply taken a break, or was he carefully reverse engineering something remarkable? By the time 2018 rolled around, quiet hints began to surface. A few vague blog updates, subtle interview references, brief mentions suggested that Edd hadn't retired, he was preparing. And then, without any elaborate promo or media campaign, a YouTube video appeared. Garage Revival, Episode 1. Just like that, the mystery began to unfold. The year of silence hadn't been a void, had been a cocoon. And what Edd had been building in that garage wasn't just a new project. It was the start of something that would reshape how fans saw him, not just as a TV mechanic, but as a creator and inventor, and a man who walked away from fame to stay true to his passion. In May 2018, Edd China made his long-awaited return, not to mainstream television, but to something more personal and meaningful. After nearly a year of silence following his departure from wheeler dealers, he reappeared on his own terms with a self-funded YouTube series called Edd China's Garage Revival. There were no flashy trailers or over-the-top rebranding efforts. Instead, viewers were welcomed back with something simple, sincere, and entirely authentic. Just Edd being Edd. The concept behind Garage Revival was refreshingly honest. Edd sought out individuals who had started restoring classic cars, but had been forced to abandon their projects midway, often due to lack of time, skills, or financial resources. Each episode followed Edd as he traveled across the UK, stepping into home garages where dusty, half-finished vehicles sat quietly waiting. These weren't just mechanical challenges. They were deeply personal stories. For the car owners, these vehicles represented dreams put on hold. And Edd wasn't just there to fix engines. He was there to help revive those dreams. In the very first episode, Ed visited the garage of a man who had been trying to restore a classic VW Golf GTI with limited tools and know-how. The project had stalled, and the car sat incomplete. Instead of dramatizing the situation, Ed rolled up his sleeves and got to work. He gave an honest, step-by-step assessment of what needed to be done, showing viewers exactly how to approach each task. His explanations were straightforward and detailed, making even the most complex mechanical issues understandable. That genuine, no-frills approach became the signature style of Garage Revival. There were no dramatic voiceovers or overproduced soundtracks. It's just Ed, a camera, and the unfiltered process of getting a job done right. If a brake line was stuck, he explained how to free it. If a gearbox was out of sync, he broke down the mechanics behind it. For longtime fans, especially those who missed his in-depth technical segments on Wheeler Dealers, it felt like a welcome return to form. Even though the show didn't have high production budgets, that was never the goal. Ed was free from the restrictions of studio executives and tight broadcast schedules. He wrote, presented, and even helped with the editing. The final product wasn't slick, but it was real. And that authenticity resonated with viewers. The first episode quickly drew hundreds of thousands of views, with fans flooding the comments section to celebrate his return. Many expressed relief that Ed's style hadn't changed, and some even felt the new show was better than Wheeler Dealers, more personal, more informative, and more grounded. But Garage Revival wasn't just a new show, it was a test. According to insiders, Ed wasn't sure if he even wanted to return to public life. YouTube gave him the freedom to experiment without committing to a long-term contract. It also offered something television couldn't: direct interaction with fans. Viewers could comment on his work, ask questions, and even suggest future projects or topics. Ed embraced this new dynamic, creating a more interactive and responsive relationship with his audience. As more episodes were released, viewers followed. Along as Ed tackled all kinds of neglected classics from tired Land Rovers to other forgotten gems, the pace was slow, the work was honest, and the obstacles were real. There were no quick-fix montages or miraculous reveals. These were the kinds of gritty, improvised fixes that every amateur mechanic knows well, and that's what made it all so relatable. Garage Revival wasn't about creating show cars, it was about helping people finish the jobs they thought they'd never complete. In doing so, it brought back something that had been fading from automotive content: education with heart. He reminded people that working on cars isn't always glamorous. It's messy, challenging, and deeply rewarding. And while the show didn't turn into a global franchise, that wasn't the point. For Ed, it was a personal project, a return to his roots, and a way to reconnect with what he loved on his own terms. For viewers, it was a reassuring sign. Ed hadn't disappeared, he was just building something new. That something new extended beyond the screen. After some time, a rare, private tours of Ed's personal garage was arranged, giving fans a peek behind the curtain. Hidden behind unmarked doors, through a cluttered driveway and walls lined with forgotten parts, the place where Ed had been quietly inventing for years. Inside, familiar eccentric creations came into view, like the famous street-legal sofa, built with real suspension and steering components, and a motorized toilet, complete with plumbing and controls. These weren't just jokes, they were working machines. Symbols of Ed's unique blend of humor and engineering. However, tucked away in a dark corner of the garage was something far less whimsical: a failed prototype. It had once been an experimental, self-steering bar stool designed to explore gyroscopic mobility, but something had clearly gone wrong. Wires were burned and hanging loose, the floor beneath was blackened, and evidence of a battery fire was still visible. According to one visitor, it looked like the lithium battery had overheated and nearly caused a serious fire, for someone known for precision and control. This was a rare glimpse into the dangers of constant experimentation, as one observer put. It looked like it tried to cook itself alive. But in a strange way, the failure made sense. Ed's garage wasn't just a workspace, it was a laboratory. Some ideas succeed brilliantly, others go up in smoke. But every attempt, successful or not, tells the same story. Edd never stops building, never stops imagining. This side of Edd, the risk-taking inventor, the tinkerer chasing wild ideas, is one fans rarely see, but it's just as real. In the end, he's a solitary creator driven by curiosity, willing to take risks others wouldn't dare. And sometimes, those risks leave burn marks, but they also pave the way for innovation no one else attempts. After the heartfelt success of Garage Revival, Edd reached another turning point. He had proven he could succeed without a studio or network. But for Edd, returning to the spotlight wasn't enough. He wanted to evolve. During his time away from TV, he had been thinking beyond traditional mechanics. Long before electric cars became trendy, Edd had been exploring sustainable transportation, electric drivetrains, and hybrid retrofits. With full creative control, he was ready to bring those ideas to the public. In April 2021, he launched a new YouTube series, Edd China's Workshop Diaries. This time, instead of traveling to others' garages, he opened the doors to his own. The format was simple each week. Edd would take viewers through the projects he was working on. But the vision was bigger, to combine deep technical knowledge with future-forward thinking. Episodes ranged from 20 to 40 minutes, featuring everything from engine rebuilds to electric car conversions. In one early episode, he converted a classic Mini to run on electric power, proving that going green doesn't mean losing charm or character. Every step of the process, from battery placement to motor mounting, was explained in detail. Nothing was skipped, nothing was dumbed down. It was honest, educational, and thoughtful. What made Workshop Diaries special was its tone. Edd wasn't trying to replicate flashy car TV. He spoke directly to the camera like a friend, guiding viewers through every step and explaining not just what he was doing, but why. Some episodes focused on traditional repairs, like fixing suspension systems or troubleshooting gearboxes. Others explored innovative ideas, lightweight panels made from recycled materials, or regenerative braking systems for older cars. Occasionally, he answered viewer-submitted questions or tested homemade tools. Every episode was driven by curiosity, not commercial pressure. The show struck a chord. Fans praised the calm tone, clear explanations, and Edd's continued commitment to education. It wasn't about entertainment, it was about empowerment. Viewers felt like they were learning something meaningful from someone who genuinely cared. There was also an emotional thread running through it all. Watching Edd work, it was clear he had taken time to heal from his exit from Wheeler Dealers. There was no bitterness, just quiet confidence and a renewed sense of purpose. By the time Workshop Diaries reached its second year, it had become more than a YouTube show. It had grown into a community, a place where classic car enthusiasts, young engineers, and curious minds came together. Occasionally, Edd brought on guests, but the focus always remained on hands-on, thoughtful engineering. It was never about showmanship, was about doing the work that matters. And that brings us to Edd China's legacy. In a world where media moves fast and values are often compromised, Edd stands out. He could have stayed on Wheeler Dealers, taken the money, and changed who he was, but he chose integrity, walked away from a winning formula because it no longer aligned with his belief that the process is just as important as the result. That decision earned him more than fame, earned him respect. Today, Edd continues to share Workshop Diaries, tackling new topics, exploring new tech, and answering the questions that others don't bother to ask. For every young person picking up a wrench, every mechanic frustrated by a stubborn bolt, and every engineer trying to modernize old machines, Edd is there, patient, curious, and committed. His presence online is more than content. It's mentorship. On a global scale, it reminds us all that engineering is still about problem solving, perseverance, and passion.